Hey everybody, welcome and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be reviewing every single book I have read in 2022. So in total this year I've read 50 books. Throughout the year I've had different goals of how many books I wanted to read. So at one point I didn't want to read 100 books. I got halfway there. Subscribe if you want to see a more in-depth review of any of these books I say. So anyways, let's get into it. So the first book that I read in 2022 was The Death Cure by James Dashner. So I read the first two books of the series in like December. I rated it 6 out of 10. My favourite characters were Newt, Nino and Thomas. The date finished was the 10th of January 2022. It wasn't as good as the rest of the Maze Runner series, and to be honest the Death Cure movie was better. I honestly think the Maze Runner movies may have been better than the books, just by a slight margin, just because the books were so much more darker, but the books made way more sense. Like all of the questions that you had were answered, whereas in the movies you were kind of just like, how does this even make sense? It doesn't add up. The next book that I read was another part of the Maze Runner series. It is The Kill Order. I rated that 5 out of 10. I think this was probably my least favourite Maze Runner book. It was just so dark and weird. I finished it on the 15th of January 2022, so it took me 5 days to read this book. And my favourite character was Alec. 110% Alec. This was like a prequel before Thomas. It was how the world came to be the way it is. How the world as we know it today ended. So I love learning more about how that happened, how the virus started and how the sun flares happened, all of that. However, I also felt like I couldn't really connect to any of the characters because there was no personality building, happiness, banter, etc. It was a very, very dark book, and it was very much like, oh, this person just died. Oh, this person just died. Oh, this person's got the virus. Oh, this person's gonna die. There was like cults in this. The next book that I read was The Fever Code. My favourite. I rated it 10 out of 10. My favourite characters were Thomas, Newt, Mino, Albie and Chuck. I finished it on the 20th of January, so it took me 5 days to read. For me, it answered all of my unanswered questions and connected me to the characters even more. I loved the plot twist at the end, even though it angered me. This book basically was before the maze, so it was about all of the characters when they were in Wicked. So you learn more about Wicked, learn more about how Chancellor Paige comes to be. After these three, I paused and waited for her so we could read Crank Palace together. I started reading a good series that I love. It's Rhapsodic and Strange Hymn. I read them on ebook. 10 out of 10. I do think the only thing that is a little bit weird about the series is the love interest is like 10 times older than the main character, and that does weird me. So I feel like you just have to kind of forget about his age and just enjoy the series. I really do love it though. It was my first fantasy book and my first like fairy book. It's a comfort book for me, but it's also an uncomfortable book for me. My favourite characters got to be Desmond freaking Flynn and also Callie. Moving back to the Maze Runner series, we have now got Crank Palace. This is basically just a book about Newt. Read this book if you love Newt. So I rated it 7 out of 10 and my favourite characters were Newt and I did like Keisha. The date finished was 3rd of February 2022. Moving on to 2 Wattpad books me and my friend read together. So let's just start off with Ace, shall we? So I rated that 4 out of 10 and that has been generous. Writing awful. After you go from Wattpad to reading proper books, you can't read Wattpad again. My favourite characters were Sophia, Ace and Ice. The date finished was the 7th of February 2022. It took me 4 days to read that. The ending felt so rushed, but if this book was rewritten with good writing and more time in between the plot twist at the end, then it could be great. This is one of the books that has been promoted so much on TikTok. It's been like Ace, 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 super sad, all of this, amazing book, whatever. I don't like sad books, number 1. Number 2, it wasn't sad because it was so rushed. Anyway, so the next book is Lilah, another Wattpad book. I rated it an 8 out of 10. It's a comfort read for me. I do really like it. I know people will hate on Lilah, the main character, a bit. She does behave a bit like a kid, but I mean, can you blame her? The amount of stuff she's been through, she's gonna be a bit messed up. So my favourite characters were Lilah, Gray, Lincoln, Oakley, Abby and Jay. Don't even remember half of these people now, but it's fine. The date finished with the 30th of February. It took me 6 days to read it. The plot isn't really a plot. So the next book that we have is It Ends With Us. At the time, forgive me, I did rate it a 9.5 out of 10. My favourite character, there's only one favourite character. There's only one person you can rightly say is the favourite character, is Lily freaking Bloom. If you say Atlas, we can't be friends because what He was so mid. He was just a basic character. I finished it on the 16th of February 2022, so it took me 3 days to read. I absolutely loved Lily's character development and how she learns from her mother's experiences. I really don't like any of the tropes in this book, I will be honest. It Ends With Us is the best Colleen Hoover book. Bearing in mind I've already read the big three, which is Verity, Ugly Love and It Ends With Us, and I'll go more into detail on my opinions of Colleen Hoover in another video. Now I think I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. Anyways, the next book I read was Ugly Love. Finished it on the 20th of February. It took me 4 days to read it. I would rate it like a solid 5 out of 10. My favourite character, I said Miles. I stand by that. I felt like all they did was just, and I know that it's ugly love, but I felt that they could have personally connected to. The only thing they did together except was buy curtains. Correct me if I'm wrong. The whole story is basically then they say they love each other and that's the end. But do they really even know each other's middle name or their favourite colour or basic stuff? Absolutely not. So then we have got the Divergent series. The first book is Divergent. I rated it an 8.5 out of 10. My favourite characters were Tris and Uriah. I love them so much. Anyways, I finished it on the 24th of February 2022, which meant it took me 4 days to read. Overall, the book was great. It was very similar to the movie, but with extra details. The next book is Insurgent, second book in the series. I rated it an 8.5 out of 10 again. My favourite characters stayed the same, Tris and Uriah. I finished it on the 28th of February 2022, which meant I read it in 4 days as well. But I think it was very different from the movies. I never really liked I didn't really like him. I didn't really like him in the movies either, but just the books, he wasn't it for me. We've got Allegiant. Yeah. I still rated this an 8 out of 10, which is surprising. I finished this on the 12th of March. It took me 12 days to read the book. My favourite characters were Tris, Christina and Uriah. The whole book was really good. It was just quite sad and a bit like, oh. Then we've got the last book in the series, which is 4. This is just a book about how 4 came to be. I did rate this a 6 out of 10. My favourite character, well, 4 and Tris, and Amar, and Zeke. I finished this on the 18th of March. That meant it must have taken me 6 days to read, which is a long time for a tiny book. I liked it because it had extra info about 4 and his life before the trilogy starts. Half of it isn't even a prequel. It's literally what happens in the first book, but in 4's point of view. And like, why do I need to know that? Like, I read it in Tris's point of view. After that, we have got Verity. I would pretty much rate it a 1 out of 10, and I'm being nice by giving it that 1. My favourite character, no one. I finished this on the 25th of March, so it took me 7 days to read. The plot twist was amazing. I hate all of the characters except the kids because they're kids. They're all completely messed up characters. I feel like to love a book you have to love the characters or at least tolerate them, and I despise them. The next book is The Cruel Prince. This series may be my favourite series of 2022. I rated this a 9.5 out of 10. My favourite characters obviously Jude and Carden. I finished this on the 28th of March 2022. It took me 3 days to read it. I love this book. To be honest, it did start off a bit slow and it took a while for me to get into it, but once I did, it was great. Okay, moving on to The Wicked King, second book in the Cruel Prince series. I finished this on the 31st of March 2022. That means it took me 3 days as well. I rated it 10 out of 10. My favourite characters, Jude and Carden, the Roach and the Bomb. The plot twist at the end was shocking. It was really, really good. The amount of plot twist, it just made the book so exciting. The next book obviously is The Queen of Nothing, the third book in the Cruel Prince series. I rated it a 10 out of 10 again. My favourite characters, Jude, Carden, the Bomb, the Ghost, the Roach, Vivi, Green Mamog. I finished this on the 1st of April 2022. I read this in a day. I honestly loved it. Again, it has so many plot twists. I miss this series so much. Anyways, the next book is The Lost Sisters. It comes in between The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King. I finished it in a day because it was a tiny book. It's like 1 chapter. I rated it a 7 out of 10. Obviously, I love Holly Black's writing and all of Elfhame, but I do not love Taryn. Oh, because it's about Jude's sister. I read this in 2 days. I paid 15 quid for this. I would never pay 15 quid for a book. Unless it's this book. I just wanted the pictures and it's all like coloured in, and then I paid extra for paperback because obviously I'm not buying a hardback. I was a bit confusing because it was just random chapters and they were all kind of mixed up. So you get one chapter that's in the future, one chapter that's in the present, one chapter that's in the past, and it all just mixes. So that's the only thing I would say. So I did rate it an 8 out of 10, and my favorite characters obviously Carden and June. Because The Cruel Prince was so amazing, I read the modern fairy tales, and there's 3 books in this one book here. I had really high expectations, obviously going from The Cruel Prince thinking, oh, apparently there's Carden and Jude in here a little bit. Yeah, there's Carden and Jude in here for like 1 page on the last book. I rated it a 7 out of 10. My favorite characters were Kay, Woburn, Corny. I finished this on the 8th of April, which meant that it took me 4 days to read it. To be honest, this book wasn't as good as I'd expected coming from reading the Fog of the Air series. I love seeing fairy from a new perspective and learning more about the land. Wasn't too bad, wasn't amazing, it was fine. And then Valiant. Valiant was the worst. So I finished this on the 12th of April, which meant it took me 4 days. I rated it 5 out of 10. My favourite characters were Valerie, Ravis and Lewis. It felt like the whole plot was injecting themselves with Nevermore and living in train tracks. That's literally what it was about. It's a separate story about a separate character, Valerie, and then at the end, the Tithe characters and the Valiant characters mixed together, and then hopefully you'd think the last book's going to be about all of them. Then I took a break from the modern fairy tales and started the off-campus series, The Deal. I read this book in a day and would do it again and again and again. 10 out of 10 I gave it. Favorite characters, Garrett, Hannah and Logan. I really did love the plot, the characters, and the way that this book gripped me from the start. I really love this book. There's no like bad guys, there's no villains, it's not fantasy or whatever, it's just normal college romance, and sometimes that's all you need. Definitely check trigger warnings. The characters are so funny, they're so likable. Next is Ironside. So I then go back to the modern fairy tales. I read this as part of my 24-hour readathon just because I wanted to get rid of this whole series. I rated this an 8 out of 10. My favourite characters, Kay, Woburn, Louis, Lutie and Ellen. I finished this on the 17th of April. This was the best book out of the series. At the end of Valiant, you thought, oh yeah, the characters from Tithe and Valiant are going to both be working together in the last book, but actually characters from Valiant were literally barely featured. I liked the ending. It was giving you more detail into the world of fairy. I honestly think scrap Valiant, keep Tithe and Ironside, pretty decent read. So then I read The Lament of Lutie, which is just literally a tiny little section in this book. So I rated this 8 out of 10, and my favourite characters Lutie and Carden, Wink, because he was in like 2 pages of this. It was a nice short read, and I really liked that I got to know Lutie a lot better. She was very overlooked, and I love that she has her own story to shine in, even if it is a couple pages. Lutie is a character in the modern fairy tales, Tithe, Valiant and Ironside, by the way. Okay, so this was the last book that I read in the 24-hour readathon, but because I tabbed it, it meant that it took me like 10 times longer, so I ended up finishing it on the 20th of April. I rated it 8.5 out of 10. Favorite characters, Olive, Adam, Holden. Really, really good, really nice, light-hearted read, and has the perfect ending and is super cute. Sometimes it wasn't the most addicting, and sometimes I had to force myself to read it, but I think that was honestly because I had the pressure of tabbing and I was just like, oh, can't be asked to tab. Next we have the X-Hex. I finished this on the 22nd of April, took me 2 days. I rated it a 7.5 out of 10. Favorite characters, Reese, Gwyn, Vivi. The book was so funny, the characters' sarcasm and jokes were just yes. This book is really great for a laugh and something light-hearted. However, it did take me a while to read because the plot wasn't that gripping. Also, the ending just seemed too easy and predictable. Okay, so then I read Shatter. This literally took me 9 days to read, and it's not because the book was bad, it was because your girl decided to annotate again. I mean, look how cute it looks. It matches like this. I rated it an 8 out of 10. My favourite characters, Kenji, Juliet, Adam, I'm sorry, James. It was a great opening and introduction to the series. I was expecting to dislike Adam, but I actually like him. Yeah, you change your mind in the next couple of books, girl, don't worry. Also, I hate Warner. Your girl also changed. Also, I love Kenji. He is so funny, and James is funny too. And yes, I do ship Adam and Juliet. Bahaha, I'm sorry. Girl, you really thought you ate. It was a bit slow at times, but it has potential. You can see by the end of the book the potential of what's going to happen with the rest of the series. So then I read half of this book, which is Unite Me. This was a book in Warner's perspective. I rated this 8 out of 10. My favourite character was Warner and Delay Liu. He's funny for no reason, I put in brackets. Date finished 1st of May 2022. So it took me 1 day. I said I started to like Warner a bit in this book. Then I take a break from the Shatter Me series, go on to the Wedding Pact. This took me 5 days to read, finished it on the 6th of May. My favourite character was Mrs. Haverly. me. I rated it a 6 out of 10. I think that is generous. This book is probably the worst book I've read this year. I said overall it was a nice light-hearted book. However, it wasn't the best book ever. The plot wasn't that exciting. The way it was written wasn't great. Some of the conversations and language used of what an old person trying to be young would write. Some of the slang was just really outdated. The ending was sweet and cute. There was so much unnecessary stuff and it was like so much miscommunication. I hate miscommunication. It just really was not fun. It was so boring. There was no other plot to it except the fact that they were living in this apartment. By the end of the book, all you get is, oh yeah, we kissed. Great. But it takes so long to get to that point. It's just like, finally. That's all I've got in this written book, so now I'm winging it. So next is Unravel Me. I go back to the Shatter series, but I'm stupid again. I decided to annotate. I cannot stress, this took me like 2 weeks to read this book. This is when I stopped annotating and I've not gone back since. I probably would rate this an 8 out of 10. It was really good, really exciting, lots of stuff that happened. I think this is one of my favorite books in the series. So then after Unravel Me, I read Fracture Me, which is the second half of this book, and it was just about Adam's point of view. Made me dislike Adam more. Then after that, I read Ignite Me. This, some people say, is their favorite book. I would say it is definitely either, if not my favorite, my second favorite. I really did love it. I just got to know the characters so much more. Obviously my love for Warner grows in this book. Next is The Spanish Love Deception. I read this on holiday. I thought this was a really good read. One of my favorite romance books that I've read this year. A lot of people do say that it takes a while for them to actually get on the holiday. I would say about half of the book is them before getting on the holiday, like preparing whatever. But I'm not gonna lie, even though I was on holiday and I was reading it and I was just like, kind of want to be reading a holiday romance right now, I'm not complaining. Unpopular opinion, I didn't think it was too slow. I thought it was perfect. I loved reading the first half and I enjoyed all of it. Like, I didn't get bored. I really did enjoy this. Okay, so then I go back to the Shatter Me series. The reason why I took a break from the Shatter Me series is because I read the first trilogy and then also I wanted to read a holiday romance on holiday. Then I went back to Shadow Me, which is Kenji's point of view. It's his novella. I don't really remember what happens, but I do remember it's about Kenji and I do love Kenji. I think he's really funny. Then we have Reveal Me. Love this book. I honestly think that the second trilogy is better than the first trilogy. You just get to know the characters so much more. The plot is just amazing. Then I went back to this book, read the second half of it, which is Reveal Me, which is again Kenji's point of view. I just love learning more about Kenji. He had a really sad past as well. Then Defy Me. I read this book in a day, but bearing in mind I was literally doing nothing during that day, so I don't really have anything else to do. And it's quite a short book as well, so I just love the whole group, like the friend group. It was just so good. So intense, so much happening, so many people to love, so many moments to love. Then the last book in the series, Imagine Me. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. It was quite a big book, and for me it just didn't feel like an ending. Like, it just didn't feel like enough. I mean, there was so many shocking moments though, and there were so many moments finding out more about Juliet, the main character, and about her past, and about Aaron Warner, his past, and that was really sweet. That was really nice and good and shocking. I mean, it was pretty decent though. Still really enjoyed it. Still amazing. Can't go wrong with Shatter Me, really. Then I read basically like an epilogue book sometime after the ending to the whole series, which is Believe Me. I loved this book. It was just like the perfect ending. It was so cute. It was so sweet. Then whilst I was reading the Shatter Me series, I was reading After as well at some points. I really hate After. I really hate Hardin. I really just do not like the book. It's just, it's too much for me. It's a massive book as well, and I just did not like Hardin. I really did not like him at the end of that book, and I just don't understand how there is more books. They should have broken up. That should have been that. I don't think there's any way he can redeem himself. Obviously he does, but he shouldn't. So next we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm not gonna lie, unpopular opinion, it was mid. It was alright, it was fine. To be fair, I did kind of know of the plot twist going into the book. It just isn't my usual type of book, and it just wasn't enough for me. I don't really like stuff like this. At times it was a bit boring, but I understand the meaning behind the book and obviously the significance it has. It just wasn't for me. The next book that I read is Book Lovers. So I went into this book with really high expectation because everyone was ranting about it on TikTok, because at the time when I read it, it literally just came out. It was quite a big deal. I would say that it was a pretty good book as well. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't disappointed. However, it wasn't my favorite book. Do you know what I really do love about this book is that Nora isn't like the typical booktok girl, you know, like like really short sunshine trope, but that's why I love it. And I love Charlie and I love just their relationship, and the ending is so cute, it's so perfect. Like I was so confused as to how everything was going to work out. I was like, I just don't understand how this is going to work, but at the end it just made sense. I would say it was like a 9 or an 8 out of 10. The next book that I read is The Mistake. I went back to the Off Campus series to read Off Campus number 2. I would say it's probably the worst Off Campus book I've read. It still was amazing. I didn't love Grace, I didn't love Logan. I mean, Logan was fine, it was okay, it wasn't as good as The Deal, it wasn't as good as number 1. But then we went to The Score, so I read The Score right after, which is about Dean. I would say it was a pretty good book again. I didn't really like what happened towards the end. Dean De Laurentiis, I mean, we love him, but he's got a lot of problems, if you know what I mean. Honestly, the whole Off Campus series has a special place in my heart. All of the characters are so funny, so light-hearted, all my comfort characters, I love them, but those two are my least favourite out of the 4. Anyways, after that I took a break from Off Campus and went to the Inheritance games. Really amazing series. I read the 2nd and 3rd book on ebook, and yeah, I really do recommend it. It's just mystery, plot twist, one of my favourite series of the year. Avery ended up with the right guy. It was a love triangle though, which is a bit of a red flag, but it wasn't that big of a love triangle. Apparently it wasn't even supposed to be a love triangle, but TikTok created it to be a love triangle because they liked the other person that she didn't get with. But I personally thought that she was supposed to get with the person she got with. It just made the most sense and their personalities click. So then I go back to The Goal. Love it. It was a pregnancy trope. Not gonna lie, I don't like pregnancy tropes. However, I really do love Sabrina, I really do love Tucker, and their story just has a special place in my heart. I just really love it. They're just so cute and I just love them so much. Anyways, my last read of 2022 is The Legacy, which is basically an epilogue for all of the books. So it's every single couple has like a quarter of the books, and all of them have like a problem, a small life problem. It's not a big problem, and basically in the quarter of the book they solve it, have a happy ending. Loved all the characters, just made me laugh. Yeah, overall I had a really good reading year. 50 books, pretty good. There was barely any books that I read and I didn't like. I'm really looking forward to another year of reading. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below any other videos you'd like to see me do, or any books you'd like to see me read or recommend or review. On Thursday I will be doing my 2023 TBR, so I have got 50 books that I want to read in 2023, because obviously I read 50 books in 2022.